everybody. This is David Visco from Effective Flow magazine. I'm here today with John Kravanka from Fussing ONeill. How you doing, John?
Hey, I'm doing great today.
Oh, that's super. Hey, why don't you start out by telling us what you folks do at Fussing ONeill?
Hey, we help our clients improve the safety, reliability, productivity of their equipment, whether it's facilities equipment or production equipment. We wrap our hands-on training around that to give them more output and more reliability of their equipment, but to teach their maintenance people how to get that equipment to run at a higher level.
Well, I think all companies could use that for sure, especially in today's competitive market.
Yes, absolutely.
No doubt. Okay, and so what's involved in getting my equipment, to run safely, reliably, and more productive?
That is a huge question.
Sure.
I'm going to refer to this document. It's a document that shows 5 wheels. It's 5 pieces to the puzzle, if you will, of how to get equipment to run safely, productively, and reliability. And there is a lot to it. I can't minimize that. To get equipment to run really well and really reliably, there's a lot to it. There's one piece of it is the operator. The operator that runs the equipment, he or she needs to own that equipment. And typically, operators don't own the equipment. Typically, they treat the equipment like a rental car. And you know how you treat a rental car. You don't check the oil. You don't care if you hit a pothole. It just happens. You turn it in, you don't care.
Right.
Unfortunately, that happens to some of our equipment. And what I'm talking about here are some of the techniques of total productive maintenance. And a big one is getting the operator to own the equipment, getting the operator to, develop a daily operator PM, an operator checklist. So the operator every day can check the pressure gauges and the lube levels and all those things. And if there's good visuals on the equipment, the operator can check it very quickly, very easily. No tools, just go around that equipment. We number it sometimes, and so that we can walk around that equipment and make sure it's running the same today as it was yesterday. And that daily operator piece is a big one. We also want to help them develop cleaning standards for that equipment. Not just at the end of the day, we quit at 3:30, so 3:15, everybody cleans up. If there's no standards, then some people will just wash up and get ready to go home. Some people might take a broom out, but there's really no standards. And we want to create some cleaning standards for that equipment so everyone does the same things every day. And we make it easy to clean. And we also want to make that operator understand what is OEE, what is overall equipment effectiveness. And it's a measure that measures the output of the equipment. And we want the operators to understand that metric. And we want the operators, because sometimes we're going to ask them to collect a little bit of data while they're running their equipment.
Sure.
If they have a jam, if they have something that stops them from running that equipment and stops the process, they have to do something. Usually they have to intervene somehow and replace an insert or unjam the equipment or whatever it is. That usually happens a lot. And we want to teach the operators to collect that data so that we can make improvements to the equipment. And if we can take away those jams and those replacing inserts and all those type of things, if we can minimize those, it makes the operator's job much easier to run that equipment. And if it's easier to run the equipment, it's going to be safer at the same time.
Right. And I would, just to stop you there, I also think it'd be fantastic you give them ownership of it and whatnot. Takes away a lot of the stress of their job if they know that they have some control over their equipment working effectively, right?
Oh, absolutely. Instead of the equipment having control over them, absolutely it does. But we have to show them what's in it for them. They're not going to just own the equipment just like that. We have to show them, hey, this is what it takes, this is what's in it, but this is what you're going to get out of it. If that equipment runs better and runs more reliably, your job as an operator will be easier and will be safer. And so the operator piece is one piece of it. The operator and the maintenance person working together is another piece of it. In most plants, what happens is the operator's on one side of a room, let's say, and the maintenance is on the other side of the room. And the operator might be saying, man, if maintenance could fix this equipment, if they knew how to fix it, this thing would run a lot better. Maintenance is on the other side of the room saying, well, if the operators knew how to run the equipment, if they didn't crash it, oh my goodness, it would run better. Right. And it's operators versus maintenance instead of operators and maintenance working together. And again, the TPM, the total productive maintenance process, starts to put those two people together and get them to see each other's point of view. And if we do it properly and we do it right, we'll get those people to start working together a lot better. We can improve the output of the equipment only so much, but we need the operators and maintenance working together in order to get to a higher and higher level of output and reliability of that equipment.
Would you say that's the biggest challenge with any kind of TPM implementation, is getting everybody on board and working hand in hand?
Yes, it's a big piece of it. It doesn't just happen. We have to facilitate it in the right way. We have to facilitate it so that they're not just fighting with each other or arguing. We facilitate it so that they start to see each other's point of view. And one way to do that is to do what we call have a focused type event, a focused session, an equipment Kaizen event. There's a lot of ways to talk about it. What we call it usually is a TPM focused improvement event. And we focus on one piece of equipment, and we have a small team of operators, maintenance, engineering, production. And it might be 6 to 8 people. It could be a little less, a little more, depending on the size of the equipment. And we evaluate the equipment. We have some training on what's involved. And then there's usually 2 or 3 shifts where we shut the equipment down, we lock it out, and then we have what we call a cleaning and inspection. And we start to get the operator to see some of the things that they don't see now. We call it seeing the invisible. And we start to get them to see that along with maintenance. Maintenance leads those events. They pull the covers off the machine. They lead it, but the operators start to understand how that equipment runs and how it can run better. But what it does is it puts operators and maintenance together, and they start to come up with ideas on how to make it, maybe how to clean it easier. They start to develop countermeasures so that we can control contamination. They start to develop countermeasures so they can make the equipment easier to work on. And it's a big piece of getting those people together. Usually, by the end of that 4 or 5 days, the equipment runs at a higher level. The equipment is cleaned. It's inspected. We've maybe found 10, 20, 30, 40. Sometimes we found 100 minor defects on that equipment. We've gotten rid of most of them. We have to open up work orders for the ones that are left over. But we find the equipment runs better. It's at a higher OEE. It's at a higher output. The maintenance and the operators working together better. We have a daily operator PM that the operator now does, and they bought into that. It's not just something you give them; they help develop it. And if they help develop that daily operator PM, there's a lot better chance that they're going to continue to do it.
That's absolutely key, as with any continuous improvement, right? So another quick question I had was, how long can a quick blitz like that take? Should somebody expect like one piece of equipment and a group of people?
Normally, we run a normal 5-day focused improvement. Now, it's for a pretty good sized piece of equipment, an average team of 6 to 10 people. If it's a very, very small piece of equipment, you could probably run it in 3 to 4 days. The key is to do some upfront training. What is total productive maintenance all about? What are the responsibilities typically of the operators and maintenance? Do some training on helping them to find the minor defects that are typically on that equipment. We will typically find 2 things that cause failure over and over and over again. And it's contamination in the form of grit, chips, dirt, dust. And it's also, we call it improper lubrication. It's a lack of lubrication. It's too much lubrication. It's the wrong kind of lubrication. We find those opportunities on every piece of equipment. So the training portion talks about those things. You may show some pictures, a lot of different things. What we're trying to do is recalibrate their eyes so that they start to see the minor defects now that are on their piece of equipment that they're going to work on. And they will start, at that point, developing a list. And that list can grow very quickly of all the minor defects that are on that equipment and all the things they want to do to make improvements. And so that event, usually it's not a one-day event. We don't just throw people out there and have them start cleaning. There's a safety factor of how to lock out the equipment. What we're looking for. We might look at the history of that equipment. If we have a good failure history that maintenance collects, we can start to look at what are the top 5 failures on that equipment, and we'll start to address those when we clean and inspect or when we develop countermeasures. We'll start to address those things. So we can, at the end of the week, we can typically get a really good increase in output of that equipment while we're training everyone. So it's a great way to get a lot of different things done at the same time.
Yeah. And it's probably easier at that point to measure the ROI for such a project as well, right?
Absolutely, it is. If you know what your typical output is every week, and it might be measured in tons of output, it might be measured in number of widgets, whatever your output that you measure already, you've got a history of that. What has it been over the last month, 2 months? And now we go forward. What is the output now going forward over the next 2 weeks, month, 2 months? And you'll typically see that output is going to go up. By what percentage? I don't know. Obviously, it's how that equipment runs beforehand, but
Right.
you'll be able to measure it, and you will get that output, which is worth in a lot of companies. That's worth a lot of money if we can get more output out of the same piece of equipment during the same time frame.
Sure, that's fantastic.
What we typically see a piece of equipment. We typically see if we looked at an OEE, an overall equipment effectiveness percentage. We typically find equipment running at 50% or less. So there's typically a huge opportunity to get more out of a piece of equipment. Normally when we do that, when we talk about OEE, we talk about the 6 major losses, the 6 losses that rob capacity from our equipment. And we usually look at them as availability, performance, and rate of quality. The availability portion is it breaking down? What are the breakdowns? And how much time do we spend on setup or changeover? And when we're changing over a piece of equipment, it's not available to us. When it's broken down, it's not available to us. So that first category of availability is pretty big. The second category is it looks at the efficiency of that equipment. How many minor stoppages do we have? How many times is it stopping, and are we running it at a slower speed? So those are performance losses. And then the last 2, we call them rate of quality losses. Are we having to start the equipment up and warm it up before we get good quality? And what's our scrap rate? How much do we scrap? Internal scrap, external. And so when we put all those 6 major losses, when we put them together, it amounts for it pulls a lot of capacity away from that equipment. Again, normally, so that equipment is running around 50%. So huge opportunities there, typically.
I know that when I talk to people, at trade shows or clients or whatever, and I'll say, do you folks have a TPM program? And I'll hear, many say, no, we don't. And I say, geez, if you want to, really improve your productivity and find some lost money there, that's the way to do it. I think above and beyond any of the other, tools in the lean toolbox, I think TPM is just fantastic.
Yeah, it is, and it helps a lot. What we've done is we've taken the TPM techniques are great, and we need to do that, but we also need to look at the maintenance system itself. How does it, evaluate the maintenance organization? Can we evaluate it against world-class maintenance in a lot of different measures? And so we need to know inside of maintenance, do we have a vision of what we want to accomplish in maintenance? Normally, that maintenance department is just fixing things, and most of their time is putting out fires, so to speak. And it's going from one breakdown to another. And if you asked someone from maintenance and you asked them, hey, what's your job? They would probably say, well, it's fixing equipment. Well, it's not. Maintenance's job is to keep equipment running at a high level. So in a lot of companies, we need to first create a vision for maintenance. What are we supposed to do? What do we need to do 5 years from now? Then we look at how do we prioritize our work? What kind of waste do we have in the maintenance process itself? We can use a tool, just like value stream mapping, we use a tool called maintenance mapping. And what it does is it finds the waste in the maintenance process itself. Then we need to know what kind of skills do we have in the maintenance with the maintenance folks. What kind of skills do they need? What kind of skills do they have so that we can start to develop a training plan? Do we know what our critical equipment are? We need to focus on that critical equipment in the plant. The stuff that if it shuts down, you're going to be sending people home. You have to get product to the customer. And that critical equipment is a combination of production equipment, and it's a combination of your facilities equipment, like your air compressors, your things like that, your dryers, cooling towers. If those go down, you're going to shut down the whole operation. So we need to know what that critical equipment is. We need to start looking at what's our safety regulations. We need to do, obviously, lockout tagout. We need an arc flash program. We need to look at combustible dust. There's all sorts of things in the safety arena wrapped around maintenance that we need to get our arms around. We need to measure ourselves really well. What's our planned versus unplanned maintenance? And again, normally it looks like a ratio of 90% unplanned, 10% plan. And we need to start to take that measurement and trend it to make sure we're going in the right direction, to make sure we're going more positive and more proactive. We need to develop a strategy wrapped around lubrication. We call it developing lubrication excellence in the plant. We also need to look at what's our predictive maintenance strategy. There's a lot of great predictive tools on the market, infrared, ultrasound, oil analysis, but we need to wrap a strategy around those so we use them effectively. We also need to look at our stores, our critical spare parts. What do we have in stock, and what should we have? And can maintenance get to them easy, or is that causing a lot of time lost just trying to find the right parts? Oh, we don't have it. We have to send out FedEx. All sorts of stuff wrapped around. So you can see in the maintenance organization itself, there's a lot of room to measure and start improving the maintenance function itself.
Right. That's fantastic. Anything else to add on your circle of improvement there?
Well, we sometimes develop what we call equipment improvement teams. We'll take a cross-section of a few maintenance people, maybe some production operators that are very proactive, engineering, make a small team. And what we do is if we have good data, and I didn't mention this what we call a CMMS, a computerized maintenance management system. Do we get good data from that system? In other words, do we know what pieces of equipment are failing, and do we have repetitive failures? It'd be just like walking in the doctor's office. The doctor looks at their record and see when you were there last, what kind of medicines are you on, what does your blood test show? You need that data for your equipment also. And so if we have that kind of data, we can take a small team and say, hey, you're going to go after the top repetitive failure in the plant, or you're going to go after the top biggest problem we have with quality, or whatever it is, and we can start to attack some of the things that have been long-term really hurting us in the plant. So equipment improvement teams are another piece of the puzzle. And the last piece of the puzzle I want to talk about is it's called early equipment management. But what it is it's getting maintenance involved when we purchase equipment. Normally in a plant, and if people are watching this, you're going to shake your head. Normally in a plant, the first time you see a piece of new equipment, the first time maintenance sees it, usually is when it's getting dragged through the front door. They don't have any input to what you're buying. And let's say in our plant, we normally use, and I'm making this up, we normally use Allen Bradley PLCs, programmable controllers. All of a sudden, a piece of equipment comes in and it's got Siemens controllers, or it's got Omron controllers, or something else, something we don't have. Now we've got to stock new parts. We've got to get trained for it. If we had input up front, we could start to say and have some voice into what kind of components are on that equipment so that we can maintain them a lot easier and a lot better.
Well,
so again, there's a lot wrapped around equipment, and it takes a lot to really focus on what we want to work on.
Well, it certainly sounds like you can hit a home run, no doubt. So you've given us a lot of ideas here and whatnot. And how would somebody that wanted to get rolling in a TPM program get in touch with you?
Well, we're available on the web, www.fando, as in Fuss and O'Neill, fando.com. You can probably put this up, my email address. If you have any questions, give us an email. Shoot us some questions. We love to just start conversing with you. We send out, and I don't know if your audience knows this, but we send out every week. We send out a maintenance best practice. We call it a single point lesson. And some of them, if you looked at the last 20, some might not apply to your plant or your equipment. Some will. And what you could do then is start to spread some of those best practices internally in your own organization. But even more importantly, if you grab that concept, you could say, hey, if I develop a best practice, I want to spread it inside of my plant. I want to spread it between all of my facilities. A way to do that is to use single point lesson as a kind of the conduit to spread all your best practices. We call it intellectual capital, and there's got to be a way to spread that so everybody doesn't keep reinventing their own wheel. And if we can spread those, we can make improvements, and we can make those improvements faster and quicker.
Yeah, I love getting those SPLs every week. I read them every week, and I share them, quite regularly. And I think anybody watching this video would find those very useful, and should certainly reach out to you folks to get signed up for that. It doesn't cost anything, it's just great value-added information, which is
Sure.
what we're both trying to do. So, John, this has been fantastic. Great info. I'm sure people are going to love it. They know how to get in touch with you, and I thank you very much.
My pleasure.
All
We'll
right.
be talking to you, David.
Okay, this is David from Effective Flow Magazine. We'll talk to you soon.